The infestation logbooks. I stood at the edge of my childhood home, the familiar facade now a grotesque caricature of the past. The paint peeled in jagged strips, revealing the rotting wood beneath, much like the memory of my family's laughter that still echoed in my ears, mocking, derisive, and filled with a cruelty that had haunted me for years. I could almost hear my mother's voice, shrill and scornful, cutting through the air like a knife. "You'll lose your mind over that nonsense, you know? It's unhealthy. You'll disgrace us." But that was years ago. I had returned not as the scorned outcast they had once ridiculed, but as a harbinger of the unspeakable truths I had uncovered, truths that now refused to be ignored. As I approached the door, I felt the weight of their disbelief pressing down on me, a suffocating reminder of who I had once been. I took a deep breath, steeling myself against the inevitable confrontation. I had become an expert in parasitic fungal hauntology, a term that had once been a punchline at family gatherings. But now, my research had earned me a chilling recognition. I was no longer seen as a delusional crackpot, but as a warning, a figure cloaked in the shadows of the very horrors I had sought to expose. I knocked, and the sound echoed through the house, a dull thud that seemed to disturb the silence that had settled like dust over the years. My younger brother, Ethan, opened the door, his face a mask of surprise that quickly contorted into a scowl. "What do you want?" he spat, eyes narrowing as he took in my weathered appearance, the shadows that clung to me like a second skin. "Can I come in?" I asked, a tremor in my voice that I barely recognized. Without waiting for a response, I stepped over the threshold, and the stale air hit me like a slap. It was as if time had frozen here, the same worn furniture and fading photographs lining the walls, the same scent of mildew that had once made my skin crawl. My family gathered in the living room, each face a mix of disdain and disbelief. "Look who decided to grace us with their presence," my father said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "The fungus whisperer has returned." I felt my heart race, a primal fear clawing at my insides, but I pressed on, determined to show them the truth they had so vehemently dismissed. "I've found something you need to see," I said, my voice steadying as I spoke. "Yeah? What's next? More of your haunted mushrooms?" Ethan sneered, but I didn't flinch. I had faced far worse than his petty ridicule. I retrieved my notes from my bag, the pages filled with my meticulous observations, diagrams, and photographs of the strange parasitic molds I had studied. This isn't just about mushrooms. It's about survival. It's about consciousness, how these fungi can alter their hosts, create a hive mind. Their laughter was a bitter sound, echoing through the room like a funeral dirge. "You've really lost it," my mother scoffed, shaking her head. "You're a disgrace." But I pressed on, feeling the urgency of my discoveries pulse through me. What if I told you that these molds are not just organisms? They're conduits, capable of spreading an unnatural consciousness. They change us, use us. "Use you? You're the one who's being used," Ethan shot back. But I was no longer interested in their mockery. I was here to show them the truth. I pulled out a vial containing a sample, the viscous liquid swirling ominously within. "This is what I've been studying. It's not fear-mongering. It's real, and it's here." As I spoke, I could feel the weight of their disbelief suffocating me, but I refused to back down. "You think I'm crazy? Fine, but you need to see." Before I could finish, the lights flickered, plunging the room into darkness. A chill swept through the air, and I could hear my family's breaths quicken, the laughter dying on their lips. Suddenly, the walls began to hum, a low, resonant sound that vibrated through my bones. The air thickened, and I felt a presence seep into the room, a palpable, suffocating darkness that wrapped around us like a shroud. What is happening?" My mother's voice trembled as she clutched Ethan's arm, her bravado evaporating like mist. I watched as the shadows coalesced, forming grotesque shapes that danced along the walls. The air was thick with tension, the kind I had experienced during my countless nights spent alone in the field, cataloging the unexplainable. "Do you see now?" I whispered, my heart pounding as the shadows twisted and writhed before us. "This is what I've been talking about. This is what you mocked." The shapes lunged toward us, a torrent of dark tendrils that snaked across the floor. Reaching for my family, who now stood frozen in terror. "No! Get back!" Ethan shouted, his bravado shattered. But there was nowhere to run. The tendrils enveloped him, and I watched as his screams echoed through the house. The darkness consumed him, pulling him into a void from which there was no escape. "Help me!" he cried, but the shadows didn't listen. They were hungry, insatiable, devouring the very essence of disbelief that had once fueled my family's scorn. "Stirrup, please!" My mother's voice cracked, and I could see the realization dawning on her face. The price of their ridicule was now being paid in full. In that moment, I felt a sense of vindication wash over me, mingled with an indescribable sorrow. They had laughed at me, called me insane, but now they were the ones facing the consequences of their disbelief. As the darkness receded, I stood alone, my family's cries fading into the ether. I had survived the horrors they could never understand, and now I was left to bear the weight of their actions. I stepped back into the light, the echoes of their laughter ringing in my ears, a haunting reminder of what it meant to be scorned. But I was no longer the outcast. I was the keeper of dark truths, the harbinger of what lay beneath the surface. And as I walked away from the house, I couldn't help but wonder if they had finally grasped the reality of the world I had tried to show them, a world where the unseen could consume us all.